Well, hello, dearies. Welcome to story time with pens and tea. I'm kidding, not story time. Today, thank you for joining me. First of all, my name's Carrie. You're at the Pens and Tea channel. Duh. Today, we're going to talk about my 5 tips. 5 tips for selling fountain pens online. I get so many questions about how I sell pens, how they should sell pens, all this stuff, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So, I thought I'd make a video. I'm also going to make another video for my 5 tips on buying fountain pens online. But this one is going to be selling fountain pens online. So, tip number 1. Photos. Take as many photos as you can. The more photos you have, the better. And the more quality photos you have, the better. Especially for that first photo that people are going to see. Make it as clear as you can. Get as many close-up shots as you can. People are going to want to see as many shots of the nib as possible. Some people are going to be able to get better photos than others when it comes to, like, if they have a loop or, you know, like a macro lens or things like that. So recognize, as a seller and the buyer, really, so I guess this kind of works both ways, but recognize that not everyone's going to have like perfect photos, you know, photographer level photos, but do as best you can, because literally people are buying based off of that photo. And that's basically it, because they can ask questions, but if you don't know the person, then that level of trust isn't there. So they don't just take your word for it, they want to see it. So tip number 1, the best tip I could possibly give, my knuckles just cracked, is take as many quality photos as you can. Paying special attention to the nib, the grip section, and any flaws. Like, I'm talking minor little teeny little, like, you know, scratches. Not even like a scratch like that, like you dropped it or whatever, but just general wear and tear. Be as honest with those photos as you can. Don't edit them. That is tip number 1. Most important. Tip number 2 for selling pens via photos. Post in as many places as you can. So Instagram tends to be the best place to go, in my experience and from other people I know. Instagram tends to be the best, so obviously post it to your page. If you have multiple pages, even if your separate page is not related to fountain pens, post there too. There is also a virtual pen show account on Instagram. If you do not know what that is on Instagram, where you been? Because that is where a lot of people post. So definitely get on there. That will give you a ton of eyes all around the world. So post in as many places as possible. If you got Facebook, post there. If you got Snapchat, make a snap. If you got Instagram, do that. You know, YouTube, do that. Spread the word as best you can. So photos and post everywhere. What's tip number 3? Have competitive pricing. So before you post your pen, look online. Again, in similar places that you're gonna have to look to post your pen, look to see what other people are posting similar pens at, price-wise. So if you're selling, you know, this Kaweco Sport, you know, take a look. Is anyone else selling a Kaweco Sport? Or is anyone else selling a pen of this caliber? What are they pricing it at? You know, if it's in mint condition, typically people will sell it for anywhere between 10 and 20% less than what you could buy brand new. If it's, you know, a little bit damaged or things like that, sometimes it'll be like 50% less. I've seen people just selling pens for parts. So it's like, you know, it would need a nib meister to put that thing back together. But look around. look at your competitors' pricing. You can either match their level or go slightly below. Just know that when you do post that pen, you are likely to get a lot of responses trying to continue to lower that price. That's not just a pen specific thing. That is an anything thing. Whether you're buying or selling online, people are going to try and get that price lower. So competitive pricing, so that you know you're fair to the market. If you get a response that's lower, then you can accept that if you want to, but it is also in your equal right to be like, no, I'm going to wait and see if I get any other better options. You can even let them know, based on your research, what you've seen, to tell them it's a fair price. That's totally up to you. These kind of like are like sub points in this one. But definitely do your research for competitive pricing. So photos, post everywhere, competitive pricing. Number 4, for selling, sorry, my cat's going nuts, for selling your pens online. PayPal is going to be your best friend. Secure the payment before you send the pen away. This is a little bit different than, if you were to buy from like a pen manufacturer or a pen shop or things like that. Well, I guess it's actually the same, really. You just don't get it immediately. But secure the payment because you don't know if they're reliable or not, right? So a lot of people will, sorry if you can hear that. That's my cat scratching on her scratching board. A lot of people will suggest maybe, can I send you half now? And then when you get the pen, or when I get the pen, I'll send you the other half. And again, I can understand that viewpoint because they're trying to protect themselves just as much. But personally, with the exception of once, and because I knew that person, I never, ever, 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 ever send a pen until I have the entire payment. Dead stop. Period. No negotiations. Unless I personally know this person. Because it's a risk. When you send that pen, you don't know. You can't get it back. So secure payment before you purchase. PayPal is the most common. So if you don't have a PayPal account, get one. You can do a direct deposit or things like that. But PayPal tends to work better just because you could be shipping worldwide, right? In many different currencies and all this kind of stuff. So definitely collect payment before, including shipping. So again, this is going to be a little sub point. There's going to be lots of these. If you're shipping within your own country, a lot of times you'll see in step 3, like when you're doing competitive pricing, a lot of times people will include the shipping within their own country, but outside their own country, shipping jacks the price up. So keep that in mind as well. Talk to, your local post office, go through their website, get that pricing as well, because you are going to want to talk about that when you are selling the pen. So include all of that pricing and all of that cash essentially before you send it. And then when you do send it, let them know immediately. If you're sending it with a tracking number, which I recommend, but you don't have to, depending on how you want to do that, then give them that tracking number as well. So that way they can follow it and they know where it is, you know where it is, all that good stuff. Benefit of tracking number is that you will also know when it arrives at your recipient's house, so that if they try and say that they didn't get it, you can go back and be like, well, you did. So I personally have never come into that. Most pen folks are pretty honest, but it's just something to consider as well. Usually does cost a little bit more. So photos, post everywhere, competitive pricing, collect payment before shipping. What is number 5? Ooh. Anyone know this? If you know where this is from, you get 10 cool points. Sorry, my camera fell over, so different angle. So tip number 5, discuss partial refunds. What do I mean by that? So this fun fact, is actually going to be something I also talk about in buying pens online and selling pens online. But for a seller, you've provided all of these photos, okay? So you've done your due diligence there. You have talked about, like the competitive pricing. You've done your due diligence there. You've shipped it, potentially with a tracking number. Who knows? You've done your due diligence there. So what happens if the receiver or recipient gets the pen and it doesn't look the way that it should have? Well, some people are going to get really mad about that, and rightly so. I mean, they just bought a pen under the pretenses that it's awesome. If there's a defect on the pen, again, this is why you have to be just super honest when you're selling a pen. Be ridiculously upfront. If there's a defect on the pen, make sure that that is in the photos and you talk about it before you send the pen. Because that way they know to expect it. Because if they find a defect on the pen that you didn't know was there, that's a gray area. But if they find a defect on the pen that you knew was there and you didn't say anything, then you're a butthole. If you were not honest, then that sucks. Then they're going to come back at you being like, I want some money back because this isn't what I asked for. This isn't what I purchased. It's a little bit of a gray area because it's a private sell. So there is some inherent risk, but maybe talk about that. Be like, hey, this is what I'm sending it as. There are no refunds. There are no, partial refunds. There are no whatever, so that they know that regardless of the shape that it arrives in, it's a different story if the post office screws it up. That's a different story. But that way they know that you're not willing or you are willing. It's a different moral side of the coin, whether you are or are not. I have had the personal experience once where I shipped a pen. It did have a defect on it. That pen actually came from the factory that way. It did not affect the actual writing experience. It was pure aesthetics. I made it very clear to the seller that it was there. I had multiple photos of it. I took actual video to show in separate lighting what it looked like. And I discounted the price of the pen accordingly. When they got the pen, they contacted me and tried to say that I sold them a lemon, essentially, that the pen didn't work, that it was horribly disfigured, and that I wasn't honest about it, and that they deserved their money back, and if they didn't get it back, then they would contact the authorities. So I basically went back to them and said, no, if you look at my post, which is still up there because I never delete posts for pens that I sell. I just put in the header that it's been sold, but I keep the whole listing there. I never alter it. I was like, it's photo number 2 and 3, and it's video on the 5th one showing the defect. I've priced accordingly. I basically go through all the other steps of essentially covering my butt, and said, if you want to contact authorities, go for it. But there's nothing you can really do about it. Because I was completely honest. Completely honest. And then they never responded back after I let them know everything that I did to tell them that, yes, this pen had an aesthetic default, but it didn't affect the actual usage of the pen. So discuss that because really, and this is just my opinion, this is purely my opinion, and other people may have different ones, so discuss it in the comment section below. I never offer partial or full refunds, ever, because I know that I have done all of the work ahead of time to make you, the consumer, as aware as possible of the condition of the pen. This includes micro scratches. This includes whether the nib is perfectly aligned. Any defects, any staining, literally every condition of the pen. I have already done my due diligence to let you know, and I've priced accordingly. So any damage that happens beyond that, after it ships, that is no longer on me. So that is something that I'll talk about in buying pens online. that is slightly more of a risk when you buy from a seller versus an actual company. So if you get a pen, you don't like it, you can return it. Not the case, typically, I would say 99% of the time, not the case with private sellers. So tip number 1, photos, 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 photos. Tip number 2, post in as many places as you can so that as many people see it as you can. Tip number 3, I'm driving myself crazy today. I think that's the collect payment before you ship it. No, due diligence. Due diligence on pricing. So competitive pricing. Then collect payment before shipping. And then discuss refunds or partial refunds or anything like that. Yeah. Those are my 5 tips. I know I had a lot of like little tiny ones, but that's because I've been doing it for a few years. I've been through a whole bunch of different experiences. 99.9% of them are very positive, selling and receiving, fountain pens online. So those are my 5 tips. Let me know and everyone else know in the comment section down below if you have any others, because I'm sure you do. And the more info we got down there, the better it will be for the whole community. So guys, I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you sticking to the end. If you're still here, hit that like button if you liked it. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more every Monday and Friday, and the occasional Q&A on Tuesday, which I will eventually bring back. And guys, as always, I'll see you next time. Bye.